Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of Be Well, Be Keto. And today's guest is Leanne Vogel. I am sure that you have heard of her before. And Leanne is the founder of Healthful Pursuit and Happy Keto Body. She is a best-selling author of over 12 health programs and international best-selling paperbacks, The Keto Diet and The Keto Diet Cookbook. She is the host of the Keto Diet podcast and the creator of Fat Fueled Living, a holistic paleo-friendly approach to a ketogenic high-fat diet. She has been in the field of nutrition since receiving her holistic nutrition cert in 2007. Leanne shares keto-friendly resources for women on her website, healthfulpursuit.com. And today we are talking about so many amazing things, but specifically Leanne's story of healing. And I cannot wait for you to hear from this wonderful woman. So let's go say hi to Leanne.
Welcome to the Be Well, Be Keto podcast, where we showcase ordinary people who have achieved extraordinary results. Your host is the high energy girl, health coach, and personal trainer, Tracy Gluhite.
Hey beautiful, my name is Tracy and I'm a health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. My passion is to help women become high energy, fat burning phenoms without starving to death and spending hours in the gym. So are you exhausted from the crazy holidays and maybe feeling a little bit of fluffy? Well, guess what? You are in luck because I put together a high energy transformation guide and it is completely free. And it's going to help you boost your energy, banish brain fog, build a little muscle, and burn off that belly fat. Okay, so here's what is in the guide. First off, it starts with mindset, because let's face it, your body can do it. It's your mind you have to convince. Next, we have food. There are 3 phases of the food plan to help you heal your body and create a fat-burning machine. It is awesome, trust me. Also, fitness. We have components for both the home and the gym, beginning, intermediate, and advanced, because if you want to age stronger, then you need to move. And lastly, and most important, is self-care, because let's face it, we women are so crazy busy taking care of everybody else, our homes, our jobs, our families, that we don't take time for ourselves. And even on the airplane, the flight attendant says to put your oxygen mask on first. So grab this free guide, 21 days, high energy transformation. Just click on the link below and that will show up in your inbox right away. Have you joined the Facebook group yet? I have a new Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and that is pretty much where I'm hanging out these days, and I would love to have you a part of the group. So head on over to High Energy Girls on Facebook. Hey Leanne, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Tracy.
I have been a big, huge fan of yours, stalking you for a couple years now, and I just feel so honored that I actually get to chit chat with you, private, personal, and for everyone else to hear.
Well, that's so cool. Thanks so much for following along. That means a lot to me.
Oh, I've got some funny stories to tell you that you'll kind of crack up at, so that of similarities. But before we go there, if there's a listener that doesn't know you, I'll be shocked, but why don't you just start off by telling them who you are?
Whoa, okay, so my name is Leanne Vogel. I started being interested in nutrition about 12 years ago. I had experienced an eating disorder, and I had had that eating disorder for a bunch of years since I was about 9 years old. And when I was in my 20s, a colleague said, hey, you really need to learn about nutrition because then maybe you wouldn't treat your body so unfairly. And so I studied holistic nutrition after discovering that dietetics wasn't totally for me. I went to school for it for a couple of weeks and was like, yeah, no, I kind of look at the body as more of a holistic thing. And I was surprised by that because I hadn't really thought of that before. So that was kind of my first introduction, and what really got me interested in just eating well for my body and taking care of my body is when I had a headache and I had taken a Tylenol and then I had eaten a bowl of broccoli. And my headache went away quite quickly, but then I was like, what is this broccoli doing to my body? And that was the first time where I really thought, okay, everything I put in my mouth or don't put in my mouth can potentially affect my health either positively or negatively. And so fast forward a bunch of years, I'd studied holistic nutrition. I got into a space where I hadn't had my period in over 8 years. This is called amenorrhea, which is a lack of period. And that's when I found the ketogenic diet, about at the 6-year mark, actually. I hadn't had a period in 6 years. All my doctors said, if you don't want babies, who cares? And I'm like, I care. I'm in my 30s. I want to do well by my body. And that's when I found keto, and that's when things really changed for me. I got my period back after 1.5 years of eating keto and adjusting it for my body and really determining what my body needed. And over the course of the last 5 years on keto, I've really changed my message and changed what I found was important to me. And that leads us up to today, where I have my first book, The Keto Diet, launched in 2017. The Keto Diet Cookbook came out April of this year. And I also have Keto for Women coming out in June, all dedicated to how women can adjust keto to do well by their bodies. If you have an imbalance or just some weird symptoms you can't get to the bottom of, I've been there. And we need to practice keto differently as women, whether we are still menstruating or postmenopausal, wherever you are in that spectrum. It's important that we honor our bodies right now. So that's kind of where I came from and what I'm doing now.
And how many years ago was it that you started eating keto?
2014, it was June 11th, 2014. I'll never forget.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, you've said a lot of stuff. So your first book, I got it right away. I absolutely love the way it is written. It is just an amazing book. And I have a funny story for you. So I totally dug deep into your recipes. And I remember finding a recipe that had an ingredient I had never had. And it was the cacao.
I knew you were going to say cacao. Yeah.
So I'm at Sprouts, okay, and I'm like, oh, this is either going to be kind of chocolatey or it's going to be kind of coconutty. And so I'm pretty weird, and I just opened the bag right there in Sprouts, and I see these big white things, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's kind of like white chocolate. And I go and I frickin' take a bite.
Yum.
No, it was not yum.
Oh, really? I do it every day.
Oh, well, I was just like, it did not taste like what I was expecting. And I was just like in the store with this thing in my mouth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to spit this out. And I'm walking around. It was so funny. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I get to tell you that story one day.
I thought it would be yum. I chew on knobs of cacao butter every day, dipped in salt. That's kind of like my thing.
Wow.
It's so good.
It was so good in the recipe, but in the store, just plain like that, I was just like, oh my gosh, no, this is not. I love all the other ones. I love coconut manna. I love your recipe with the bacon fat fudge. Is it fudge or the bacon fat?
Yep. Yeah. I make that all the time. I don't even bother to solidify it now. I just drink it. I'll put it on things like berries or dip nuts in it. Oh yeah, that stuff's so good.
That's hilarious. So let's get back to your story. So you had amenorrhea. I had that when I was young before I had kids. Do they know why?
I've had multiple doctors tell me different things, but the one doctor who I wish I would have paid more attention to, but I was still quite disordered at that point, as many of us are, even though we claim to be going after health, a lot of us are disordered with our eating. And there was this one endocrinologist, wow, oh, TGIF, who said, I'm not going to help you. All you need to do is gain some weight and eat a lot of food. You'll be fine. And I wish I could go back and just shake his hand and thank him for the great recommendation, because that's really all I needed to do. I had been under eating for such a huge part of my life. And basically from the time I was 9 and probably before then too, I always had a very conscious idea of what my body should be. And my mom always dieted. So I was very conscious to what all of that was about and the fact that my body had to look a certain way. So looking back, I think a lot of it was due to the fact that I wasn't eating enough. A lot of it was also probably due to the fact that I worked out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely a big factor as well. And the fat piece, like I cooked all things in water. I sauteed in water. I was proud of myself when I figured out how to replace an egg in recipes or oil in recipes with water or applesauce or squished banana. So I was really, really lacking in the fat department. My cholesterol was too low. It was completely imbalanced. And those are some of the factors that I've pulled together myself now, knowing what I know. And that one doctor that said you just need to eat a lot of food and gain some weight. I mean, that's really all I needed to do.
Wow, that's so interesting because I have a similar story. Like my mom was the same. Like I started dieting when I was super young. I remember going on the iced tea diet where all I ate, I was like a sophomore in high school, and all I did was drink iced tea all day. And I remember like when I was young, my dad walked in, I was 10 years old, and he says to me, he says, "Tell your mom I'm leaving." And he basically left and he left us when I was 10. And he had told her shortly before that if you ever get fat again, I'm leaving you.
No.
So I equated love. I mean, this is my subconscious, right? So I equated love with being thin.
Of course. Totally you would. 100% you would.
Yeah. So I've never said that out loud to anybody online. So now that's the real thing. So I was kind of similar, like that's why I think I'm so drawn to you and your stories because, it's just such a real thing. And I've been doing a lot of work with, recovery as far as like emotions and letting things out, like, being able to process them instead of them being stuck. And that's one that came up recently. So it's interesting.
Wow. What a powerful thing, right? And to be able to break away from that and for us to be honest with ourselves, I think you'd be amazed if you just sat with yourself for even 2 minutes and thought back to the first time that you remembered food in your body. And a lot of times people think back to when they're very young. Like I have a very strong memory of making a sign for my mom because she had lost 30 pounds on Weight Watchers. And that was my first memory. Like we made this whole banner and we had balloons and it was this whole thing. And then I equated, oh my gosh, if I'm thin and I look good, my family is going to love me more. And I'm going to have parties and balloons and banners. And that was ingrained in me for a very long time. So it's so powerful when we can go back to those memories and unpack it and tell ourselves that it's okay. And that's where a lot of our issues come from, and our relationship with our bodies and our distrust in our bodies. And when we unpack that, oh my gosh, life is so much better. So much better.
Well, and that leads to another question. So you didn't just eat a lot of food and gain your period back. You did more. What other things did you do on your journey?
I stopped working out, which was the worst thing ever. I was a competitive runner. I was just preparing for my first triathlon. I trained at least 2 hours a day, but it was usually closer to 4 to 5. I took my training very seriously. I had a coach, and I was crazy about it. And when I made that decision to stop working out completely, nothing, like sitting on the couch doing nothing, that was so hard for me to find something else to do. And that's when I realized I had a very, very addictive personality. And that was really challenging. I did that for a total of 9 months until I got my period back. And then I started doing yoga slowly. I tried to go back to the gym, and then I lost my period again. And so it's been a couple of years of me trying to figure out what physical activities I can do without it affecting my cycle, because my body is still very sensitive to it. So that was the first one. Next one was eating a lot of fat, like a ton of fat, and specifically a lot of beef and liver. Like when I gave myself full permission to eat, I would eat a pound of grass-fed, grass-finished beef in one sitting, like easily done. Now, fast forward, what would it be? Almost 4 years 3.5 years of having my period. I really don't love beef. Like I'll eat it sometimes, but I definitely don't have that obsession over it. So it was also just honoring myself. I would wake up in the middle of the night and eat. So I was eating relatively keto for the first 3 to 6 months-ish. I can't totally remember how long it was. I gave myself full permission to eat anything. So I'd been keto for about 10 months when I was like, this ain't working. I've healed my ADHD. I'm feeling really great. My mind is on point. I've lost a lot of hormone weight gain that I gained throughout this whole experience, but like I'm unhappy and this isn't working. So I bought probably $200 worth of junk food, and I had it in the house, and I got through, I don't know, maybe 70% of it until I felt so sick. And I was like, I actually hate this food. It's disgusting. So that was also part of my process too, of not limiting my food anymore and just letting my body be the guide. And after experiencing that and eating candy for like 5 days solid, I started gravitating toward fatty foods, like just keto foods. And that's where I've remained for the last 3.5 years after that experience. So that part was really helpful for me too, and just healing my blistered relationship with food and the restrictions that I had put on myself, which led to binges, which didn't help my hormones at all. And those are really like the big things. And as I went closer to keto and I was just intuitively eating keto, I looked back and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm totally eating a ketogenic diet and I'm not forcing myself to do this. It's just where I feel best. Then I started playing around with carbohydrate timing, where I started doing a thing called carb ups, where I started eating carbs in the evening when I felt like it throughout my cycle. And that really seemed to help. And that was kind of like the ticket. That's really what brought everything back into balance for me. So those are kind of like the main things.
Okay, so let's talk about carb ups. So I'm postmenopausal, and I'm telling you, girl, it has probably been 9 years maybe since I've had a period. And what types of carb ups would you recommend for somebody in that phase of life?
None.
None? Oh, okay.
So when you're perimenopausal, you still need them. You still have a cycle. It's just a little bit longer, like maybe it's 40 days, 60 days, whatever the case may be. So it's still important to practice carb ups. Once you're menopausal, postmenopausal, you don't need them. Now, the reason I say this is because carb ups can be really beneficial to just your overall cycle. So I find that the best time to have carbohydrates throughout your cycle is days 17 to 28, or basically the end of your ovulation to the day before you have your period. Now, if you're not ovulating, you can use the moon as a guide, and maybe we won't get into that today. But when you start switching over to the fact that now your ovaries aren't producing your sex hormones, your adrenals are, it's less important to support your sex hormones with carb ups. But if you have issues with your adrenals or you have issues with your thyroid, you may benefit from having carb ups on that side of things. But if you're just asking me like, I'm a healthy female, I'm postmenopausal, should I have carb ups? No. But if you say, I'm a healthy-ish female, but my thyroid is really messed up, I'm really trying to balance it out, I'm postmenopausal, should I have carb ups? The answer is probably yes. So it really depends on the other health imbalances that you have and whether or not a carb up could be beneficial for you.
Okay, cool. And I bet you go really deep in your new book that's coming out in June, right?
Oh man, Keto for Women is like, there's probably, I put together the references the other day, the sources in the document, and the thyroid specifically is really big. The menopause section is really, really big. PCOS also, and really all these imbalances or life stages that we're trying to navigate by just eat 20 grams of carbs for the rest of your life, you're welcome. Like, it just doesn't work. It really doesn't work, because people are individuals and we have different things and we react to different ingredients. Like, I am okay with having a touch of sugar on my ketogenic diet. I'm fine with it. It doesn't really affect me. I'm good. Well, that's also because I've been eating keto for 5 years. And what frustrates me the most about really any eating style, specifically keto, I think because it's so powerful, is a woman will start eating keto and then 6 months will go by and she comes to me maybe at a book signing, or she sends me an email or an Instagram message and she's like, Leanne, I've been eating the same way for 6 months. It was working. It was totally working. And then all of a sudden it just stopped working. Like nothing's working. My brain fog is back and I'm gaining weight and I don't understand. I'm like, okay, well, what happened? Like, what were you experiencing? What did you go through? And they said, well, my kid is leaving the house. It's been really stressful. I'm like, okay, did you adjust your diet for that? And they're like, what? Why would I do that? Or, I stopped ovulating. I might be approaching a menopause. And what do I do? Well, did you adjust your diet for that? And they're like, well, no. And so I think as women, because we're such a cyclical creature and we require different things at different times through life stages or events, we need to adjust our diet for this. And we need to understand that keto is so healing. It's so healing that the diet that worked for us 6 months ago is probably not the diet that we need now. And that's a good thing. So maybe you can actually have more carbohydrates. Maybe you can get away with having that banana that you're craving. And there's nothing worse than craving that banana like crazy. And then you go out for dinner with friends and you're like, screw it. I'm going to have a pizza and cake and 3 cups of wine, all because you just wanted a banana yesterday. And I see that over and over and over and over. So in Keto for Women, I really go through like just how to manage that and stop being crazy around food. And I've definitely been crazy around food for a really, really long time. So I can relate like a bazillion % over. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I hear you because I feel the same way. And what about fasting? How does that affect women?
Yeah, okay. So when I was experiencing amenorrhea, I would say that fasting was like not good for me whatsoever. And I think I actually harmed my body more than if I wouldn't have fasted. And it really hit home when I was chatting with Dr. Jason Fung, and he was like, yeah, so if you have a history of an eating disorder or you're underweight, you probably shouldn't fast. And in my head, I thought like, I am not underweight. Like I could definitely benefit from losing 20 pounds. But what I've learned is my underweight, quote unquote, is very different than what I thought it actually was. Like I need to have quite a high fat percentage on my body at all times, or I either don't have a period or have the worst period ever. Like horrible symptoms, acne for days, pain, I'm nauseous, like it's horrible. And so I think fasting largely plays a role in our lives, but it really depends on your hormones. I would say that if you're not having a cycle or your cycle is not regular, you probably don't want to fast. But maybe if you have thyroid imbalance, adrenal imbalance, if you are postmenopausal, amazing, do it. It really, really depends. But I would just say if your cycle is not regular or you're having issues with your cycle, it might not be the best idea to fast. Whereas somebody maybe with PCOS who, although it is a hormonal imbalance, I really see it as being an insulin issue. I would say if you're PCOS, 100% fast and see how it goes. But I think just thinking that fasting is this ultimate thing that everybody needs to do because they're keto isn't totally fair. And it's also not fair on a daily basis. If you're just like, if you're hungry in the morning and you're like, nope, I'm fasting, that's ludicrous. Like have a fatty coffee, have a fat bomb, have a bacon and eggs and some greens or whatever, a handful of nuts, who cares? But if you're hungry, please eat. And if you notice that you're hungry every morning and you're like, what is going on? It could be that your leptin and ghrelin is a little bit imbalanced, and this can happen for women. So you could potentially practice a carb up where you have like an apple on your salad tonight, or a half a sweet potato with a little bit of coconut oil, and see if tomorrow you're not hungry. I find when I start to wake up every morning and I'm hungry, I know that I haven't been listening to my body and I need to do a carb up. And instantly the next day, oh my gosh, I can fast through the day, no problem, have dinner, and I'm like, that was the best day ever. Yeah. So that can be a really good trick too.
So basically what I'm hearing from you is that we need to be mindful and listen to what our body needs.
Yeah, and this, like, I've had so many arguments with my husband over this because he is not an intuitive person. Like, I pick up on the signals of his body and I tell him when he's reacting to food, having not even been in his body. Like, I can just tell by looking at him and how he's acting and what he's saying, and he's just not an intuitive person. And I get get that there are lots of people out there that aren't intuitive with their bodies, and trying to learn how to be intuitive is a huge challenge. But we're all born with a very slight, even if it's so slight, connection with our body and what it needs. Like maybe just look at a kid, like anyone under the age of like 2, like around 2 to 3 years old, they get independence and they tell you very strongly, like, I want food, or I don't want food, or I don't like blueberries. Look at how they know their bodies, and when they know they're full or hungry. Like me as a kid, I loved eating like big meals until I was totally stuffed and couldn't move. I loved that. Whereas my sister, it drove me nuts. She would eat like 1 carrot and then go run around the house, and an hour later, then she would eat something else, and then an hour later, and I'm like, girl, just like eat something and be done with it. And that's the way we are as adults now, being more intuitive people. So try not to get discouraged by the fact that you're not an intuitive person. And that's why there's programs out there like mine that kind of say, okay, if you're not an intuitive person, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and it'll kind of guide you through, and you'll learn what you like and don't like what just doesn't feel good, what does feel good, or what just doesn't work for your schedule or your family. And those can be factors as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And I find with being intuitive and mindful that it's really important with everything in our lives, just being present and experiencing things, and get out of our head and be more, into our heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important.
Yeah, I think you can have better and stronger relationships when you're more mindful about stuff like that as well.
Yes. Oh, life lesson. I'm still learning that one. I've got the food stuff, body stuff down. Now I need to be like more life stuff.
Well, I'm older. I'm 53, so I'm a lot older than you. And so that's kind of like that next phase for me is like I'm learning about, I'm doing Qigong every day, and I'm doing Reiki, and I just got certified to teach yoga. And so I'm kind of like going into that next phase of life,
That's amazing. That sounds absolutely beautiful.
It is. It's so healing too. Like the stories I've heard of people healing through those types of modalities are pretty cool. And so that's kind of why I want to go down that path right now. So yeah. It's really awesome. So I have so many questions for you. So now you've recovered. Were there any people in that journey that you did some extra work on besides just stopping exercise? Was there something else that happened during that time?
I worked with an amazing body image coach named Summer Inanen. I think her website is thebodyimagecoach.com. If you just search Summer Inanen, I think it's Inanen. Oh, she's just amazing. She really changed the game for me, and just like, I think that there's a lot of body dysmorphia that we all have in some way, where we just don't see our bodies the way that they are. And what I really worked on throughout this, because like I had a very, very toned body. I had 6-pack abs for days and really enjoyed looking at myself in the mirror sometimes. But I could look at myself in the mirror, and on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and be like, dang, girl, who are you? You're hot. And then literally 5 minutes later, be like, oh, I shouldn't have had that chocolate last night. Like seriously, 5 minutes. And so working through that and just understanding that no matter the state of my body, whether I have 6-pack abs or not, or flabby arms or not, or a thigh gap or not, it doesn't make me any different of a person. It doesn't disqualify me from working in the nutrition field, for speaking my truth when it comes to just trying to encourage women to empower themselves to be their best selves, regardless of how their body looks. I was raised by 2 quote unquote disabled people, and to just watch both my parents just interact with life. I often forget that they have a disability, and it doesn't make them any less of a human because of it. And I really started to appreciate all my limbs and my eyeballs and things that a lot of other people don't even have and can't have. And when I was on the beach, I think we had gone on a vacation or something like that. Cuba. We were in Cuba because I'm Canadian and we can go there whenever. I'm sorry. And we were in Cuba, and there was a lady in a wheelchair sitting in her wheelchair right at the tip of the beach. And I was like, why isn't she on one of the cabana things and enjoying her life? And I thought, oh my gosh, she can't get her wheelchair through the sand. Aww. That is why she's sitting here. And it just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, Leanne, what are you doing? Like, why are you caring about whether or not you're a size 4 or a size 14? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, here's this woman, she's never going to run on a beach, or maybe she did in the past, but she can't even get a wheelchair on the beach. And I'm pissed off about the fact that I need to get a different bathing suit because, like, I don't know, I think at that time my bust was getting a little bit bigger and I couldn't get my top on, so I had to wear another bathing suit, and I was just angry about it. Really? So yeah. that was another big piece of the work, and working with Summer, and her podcasts are amazing. And it just really changed the game for me and taught me to just treat my body with love and respect. And if you can't do love, that's fine. Respect, big one. Like, just respect your body. And that was a big part of it too. And I really feel like I couldn't have done this work without eating enough fat to really light up my brain to be even open to this. Because, like, seriously, I was very, very sick. I've been treated with an eating disorder multiple times, multiple hospitals. I've been hospitalized for multiple months. So to be able to say this stuff, like, if I can do it, you can totally do it. Like, I was messed up. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And the fat really lights up your brain more than anything else I've ever tried.
So how much fat do you eat? Like, what's your percentage about? Do you even know?
I don't know anymore. A lot. I don't know. When I do, so for me, I like to track by writing down what I've eaten. And then, like, a couple of weeks later, sometimes even a month, I'll input my food into a tracking app just to kind of see where I am. But I try to make it spaced out enough that I don't worry about it, because it was so far away that I can't even stress about it. But when I was overcoming amenorrhea and just starting with keto, I was around 200 grams of fat a day. And that's where I felt best. But now I would say that I'm probably closer to like 120, 130 grams. And I don't really like to work off percentages per se, because I find, like, for me and a lot of bodies, it's just about the grams. Like, for me, I know that if I have anything less than 100 grams of fat, I will be totally crazy and I just will hate my life. Like, I just don't do well mentally without enough fat. And so I would guess that when I started, well, I know because I tracked everything, I was about 80% fat. Now, if you look at me, you know, when I'm on, say, like, I really work on my cycles and such, like cycle days 6 to 11. So that's right after my period up until a couple of days before ovulation. I'm a fat monster. I'm totally at 80% fat. But then, say, my actual period, oh my gosh, I'm all protein. Like, I would say I'm probably 50% fat. So it varies depending on where I'm at in my cycle, and should for all of us, depending on where we're at in our cycle, because we need different things at different times in order to support ourselves properly. So yeah, it's definitely changed over the years, and it should change as we need certain things.
And what are your favorite ways to eat all that? Like, what are your favorite ways? Because I find it really hard. My favorite food is grass-fed ground beef, taco salad-ish with avocado and avocado oil salad dressing. Mm-hmm. That's like my favorite. But I'm trying to figure out, like, how do you get that much fat in?
Yeah, well, I hate avocados. I used to love them, but now even, like, saying avocado, it's like, whoa. Like, I will eat guacamole, though. So I do eat a lot of guacamole. I don't see that as being an avocado. It's a totally different food group. So I do eat a lot of guacamole, just not any plain avocados. A lot of chicken skin. We fish a lot. We live on a boat full time, so there's, like, a lot of fish. A lot of cooked fish, grilled fish, lots of oil on the fish. And what else? I use a lot of avocado oil, olive oil. I've started eating eggs again. I was really sensitive to them for a while, but that's been really good. Mostly the yolks. And have you heard of, I don't even know what it's called, a cruiser friend that lives on a boat. She was talking to me about salting her yolks. Sounds so dirty. But so you basically take the egg whites out and you're left with the yolks, and then you cover them in salt. Have you heard of this?
No.
Oh my
Is
God.
it raw or cooked?
Yeah, it's raw. It's raw. They cover them in salt and you let them sit out for a couple days. I think it's like a total of 10 days. And then you uncover them and they're like these amazing, it's almost like cheese. Like you can grate it. It doesn't like totally melt normally, but oh my gosh, I probably eat like 4 of those a day. And that's like 10 grams of fat each. So that's like 40 grams of fat done just like that. Oh,
wow. So you leave them out at room temperature. So you crack an egg,
yes.
or you separate the egg. You just take the yolks, put them on a plate or whatever, and then just smother them with salt?
Smother them in salt, like a lot of salt. And you just cover it all in salt and you let it sit. And then you have these like, I don't know, they're like cured or something. I have no idea. Like, and I have never followed instructions. So I'm sure there's like a tutorial online about this, but a lot of people in boats do this because we need to like keep our food fresh, but not in fridges. And so it was a really good tip I picked up from some crazy sailor person. And it's so tasty. So I do a lot of that. And I've started eating a lot more nut butters and like fat packets just because I've been really busy lately. So I really love Synchro Keto Manna. That stuff's really good. You can also make it on your own. I've tried to make it, but it's just not as good. They must put magic in theirs because I can't get it the same.
And what's it made out of?
It's coconut, chocolate, cacao butter, MCT oil, and it's just like in a packet. Oh, monk fruit is in there. And then I also really like the F-bombs. Those are pretty good. And I understand like there is a lot of packaging and I try not to create a lot of waste. But when I'm on a really epic sale and it's like 30 hours, I can't really leave the helm very easily. And when I'm not at the helm, I'm sleeping. So to be able to just have a fat pack, we call them fat packs in our house, to be able to have a fat pack in my pocket, just like down is really helpful. And then I don't do much fatty coffees anymore. I'm so over it. It's been 5 years and I don't like them as much as I used to. So I more just incorporate my fats into my foods when I'm eating.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I do my coffee in the morning, but I use a total of a tablespoon of MCT because I don't want to really break my fast yet. So I use 1 teaspoon at a time and separate it every couple hours. Because I heard that if you keep it down to like 35, 40 calories, then it won't break your fast.
I don't know. Okay, I guess it depends on how your like what your goal is with fasting. The way I see it is there's like 2 different paths. One is I want to fast because I'm trying to regulate my insulin. And then the second one is I want to fast because autophagy, or other people call it autophagy. I've really tried to get out of that because I know it's autophagy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have these 2 different paths. With the insulin regulation, it doesn't really matter what you eat or when you eat it. It's really about regulating your insulin. So we know that fat should not spike your insulin. Therefore, you should be able to eat fat and it'll be fine. You wouldn't want to eat a lot of protein or a lot of carbs because then you'll break your fast because your insulin is affected. But then with autophagy, now I've read recent studies because I did all the stuff for Keto for Women. And as far as I could tell, you kind of just want to be drinking water.
Oh, boy.
But I mean, the thing about keto and everything is like science is always changing. Research is always changing. And I think the most beneficial thing you can do so you don't go crazy and spend a lot of money, time, energy trying to figure out the next best thing is to just try it. Like, go a day without having anything or like a couple hours without having anything and just drink water and see how you feel and do that for a couple days and then add fat and see how you feel and test your blood glucose and see how that goes. Just because it all depends on your body.
Yeah.
Like, it's so dependent.
I don't think I could survive without my coffee in the morning. Like I get up at 4:45, go to the gym, train from 5:30 to 6:30. And if I don't have coffee, it's like done.
Have you tried Earl Grey tea? It has bergamot oil, which increases autophagy and is helpful. I usually just add bergamot oil to my water.
Oh, Earl Grey tea. Okay. It increases autophagy?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, girl. Thank you for that tip. I never heard
you're
that.
welcome.
I'm like super excited because I because of my age, my dad's had cancer. I think he's on 4 times now. My whole focus and passion is on aging stronger and not going down the paths that both of my parents are on, which is not good. My mom has Alzheimer's and Hashimoto's and all kinds of problems. Oh. So, how about, are you doing dairy right now?
No, I've never done dairy. I've tried. I've really tried to commit to the whole dairy thing, and I loved cheese when I was a kid, but dairy hates me, and like my body hates dairy. Like every time I try to eat dairy and I just push away the symptoms, my inflammation goes so high, and I'm dealing with so many health issues, and I start reacting to all these crazy foods that I've never reacted to before. I can get away with like a little bit. Like if a salami has some dairy in it, I will get acne, but it's not like the end of the world. But I can't do it. I can't. I tried so many times, and it's so tasty, and I get it. And also as a previous vegan, like I was vegan for 8 years before being keto. And I get, like, for me, I need animal protein, and it ebbs and flows. But for me, I don't need dairy, and I just can't get behind it. I think mentally too. So I don't do it.
So I mostly don't do it because I, like several years ago, had a stool test to do gluten and dairy sensitivities. And I didn't even think I had one at the time. I just wanted to do it to be able to explain the process to my clients. And I came back way high on gluten, like super duper high. And I came up pretty darn high on dairy. And then, so I pretty much like stopped eating it most of the time. And then I did the Viome test. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
And it said dairy was okay.
Interesting.
Isn't that weird? Like, I was like, well, now I don't know if I even believe Viome because I've had 2 different tests that say dairy's bad for my body. And then they say, oh, it's okay.
Yeah, I think really, like, I've had so many test results tell me things that I'm like, no, or yeah. The best thing you can do, like, I've had gluten testing done, and I've been told multiple times that I don't have a gluten problem. And I've tried multiple times to start eating it again, and every single time my body's like, what are you doing to me? I hate you. So, like, I think at the end of the day, you got to listen to that. So...
Yeah, that's true. So here's another funny story for you. So I've heard you before on your podcast talk about your reaction. I think it's on one of your fingers or something, that when you get in like some omega-6 oils.
Yeah, it's spread to 2 fingers now. So it's my index and my middle finger on my left hand. And it is the worst feeling. And it's both those fingers. It's like, the fingers I piece with constantly are the 2 fingers that just like get it every time. And I can tell so quickly, like within moments of eating something that's inflammatory. It does it a bit with nightshades. Like if I went out for Mexican with my sister a couple weeks ago, and I had all the nightshades, and my finger was so stiff I could barely move it the next day. But if I have just a little bit, it doesn't affect me. But processed oils, oh man, like... Oh, it's so bad. It hurts. It's like, I can't even explain it. It's just like little knives inside my finger, and it's those 2 fingers. And it's a little bit sad that it's spread, but I think I'm just becoming more and more, not more and more sensitive. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm more and more in touch with my body. And to be honest, it's probably that my fingers always hurt. I just didn't really stay open to the fact that my body could send me signals. Like I can tell when my husband's body hurts before he can. I'm like, hey, you're holding your neck weird. Does it hurt right here? And as soon as I touch it, he's like, ah! And I'm like, yeah, man. Like,
wow, you're an intuitive.
Yeah, I really am. But I think we all are, because I really wasn't. Like, I can't stress this enough. Like, I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, around 14 cans of Diet Coke a day. Like, severely disordered individual, didn't listen to her body at all. Intuition, no. So I think we can all adjust. And yeah.
I think that's awesome, because I learned that. I just got certified for Reiki Level 1, and that's what she said. She said, you all have it in you. It's just you need to quiet yourself down so you can hear it.
Yes. Beautiful human being. Yes.
Yeah, that was so amazing for me to hear because I was the same. I mean, my breakfast in the morning was a Diet Coke super big gulp, you know? So
Wow.
I was horrible. So I'm just happy to be on a health journey. I started studying nutrition in 2007, and so that's kind of how I got there. But I have the same feeling as you. So it's my right thumb knuckle. And
What?
yeah, I swear. So when I heard you say that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like me too. So I went to this women's thing with my mother-in-law. She has this women's club she's in, and she wanted me to go with her one day. And all I ate was salad, okay? And I forgot to bring my own dressing, which I often do. And I'm sure now, looking back, that vinaigrette must have had, you know, canola oil or something in it because my knuckle got so inflamed that I could not turn on my car ignition.
Oh, yeah, it's painful, right?
Yeah. And I think that other people probably haven't eliminated it enough from their eating plan that they don't know what it's like to not have it, and your body kind of like masks the symptoms because they're getting used to things. And once you eliminate that and then have it again, that's how you notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really takes taking it out and then putting it back to be like, whoa, actually, this is a huge problem. It's the same thing with like gluten. I mean, when somebody told me, maybe you should stop with the gluten thing, I'm like, what is a gluten? Are you nuts? No thanks. But when I did, and then I added it back after 30 days, I remember I went for a run and I'd had an oat bar before my run, and it had been 30 days without gluten, and I had always had these oat bars before running. And that first day after 30 days of eating gluten, having that oat bar, oh my gosh, I felt like death. Like absolute death. I never felt that before. And then my stomach started hurting and my head was really foggy. And I'm like, I think I might have a gluten problem. And I had no idea before. So it really takes getting it out, adding it back in, and seeing how you feel. And tests can kind of tell you, give you some avenues to explore, but it's really up to you. And it saddens me that of all the priorities we have out there in the world, that our body really takes last priority, if a priority at all. You know, and without this body, we don't have this life. We don't have the priorities we have. And it comes to a point, like you said, with our parents and seeing the choices that they made and what they're experiencing now. And it's like, I don't want that life. No, thanks. And sometimes it takes those scary experiences, and it shouldn't. It should just be like, your body is what's keeping you on this planet. Without it, no life. You're welcome.
yeah, that's cut and dry. And I always say, like, I actually posted on Instagram, I think today, that you're either paying the farmer now or you're going to pay the pharmacy later.
Yes.
You know? And I'm writing a book right now. So basically in 2014, I wrote a book called No Frickin' Way, 21 Days to Ditch the Diet, Crowd Out the Crap, and Love Yourself to Health.
Nice.
And back then, I didn't know about keto. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking this writer's class, a writer's workshop, and the teacher's like, you know, you need to repurpose your existing book before you write a new one and make it so we can actually help, you know, make it awesome. And so I changed the name. So now it's going to be No Frickin' Way, like WEIGH. And it's Ditch the Diet the Keto Way.
I like that. Cool.
So, yeah, but it's all talking about that, you know, the same thing. Like, you know, you have one body, and chances are, like, why would you put water in the gas tank of your car? You wouldn't, you know? So why are you putting Coke or whatever, any crap in your own body?
Yes, totally. And I think so I've come onto the other side of it, you know, having healed my body, and I still have imbalances and things that I'm working on and things like that. But I feel like I'm in a pretty good place now where I'm starting to realize, at least for me, is like the crap or the garbage food, I think I put on a pedestal of like bad food that I shouldn't touch or shouldn't think about. And now it's really like all food is food. It's just food. And I've stopped thinking about the fact that there's like bad food and good food, because in the end, you know, I can eat, let's say, for example, I'm anaphylactic to peanuts. Considered maybe a good food to some. I mean, mold, not really great, so maybe a horrible example. But like peanuts, probably an okay food. For me, a death food. But then it gets into stuff like if I eat too many macadamia nuts, I'll also feel not so good. And that's considered a quote unquote good food. But for me, it's not really a great food. Mm-hmm. If I go to visit my sister in Canada and we're having the best time and she recommends that we go to a Mexican restaurant and get totally tanked on margaritas, I'm not going to say no. Like, I never get to see my sister. I'm going to get totally tanked on margaritas and eat tacos. Is it keto? No. Nope. But my body is fat adapted enough that, like, the next day, I might feel a little bit hungover, but I test my ketones and they're fine. Like, they're fine. And then I'm fasting the whole day, just drinking water. Maybe I don't even eat dinner. So now I've done like a over 24 hours, usually 36-hour fast, and I feel great. And so I think it can be a really dangerous, maybe not dangerous is the right word, but you know what I'm saying? Like space to be in of like garbage food versus like good food, because I think that can become like obsessive too. But I agree with you. Like if your body's saying, yo, I feel like garbage eating this. Okay, noted. I might choose to feel like garbage again, and that's okay. And I've done that. Like, we go out with friends and I'm like, there's probably some sort of funky oil in that, but I really want chicken wings and it's the only keto thing, quote unquote. I'm going to go with that. And so it's all about weighing out your choices.
Yeah, I totally agree. And being mindful. Like, I'm really big into that. Like, if you make a choice, but don't say, oh, well, I'm off the wagon. I'm just going to throw in the towel for the rest of the month or, you know, whatever, the rest of the week.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but it happens all the time. I don't understand. Like I see so many people, they just completely just nosedive, fall off the wagon, fall off their goals. What do you think about that? Like they say they want one thing, but they, they give up on themselves.
It's that all or nothing mentality. Yeah. And it's like the black versus white. Like I'm either in or I'm out. There's no gray. I'm just doing it. And you're only cheating yourself in that moment, and it's really not your fault. Like the problem with diet culture in general is that we didn't ask for all these beliefs to be pounded into our brain at a very young age. Like you didn't ask for your relationship between love and weight to be melded together in your psyche forever. I didn't ask to be to have the idea that celebration only comes when you're a certain size, but we didn't ask for these things, and it comes into our brain and we don't even think before we act. Like we just think that this is the way that it is, that if we're not following a diet perfectly, well then there's no point. Who the heck said that? Well, I kind of know who, like the diet industry, and that's how they get you. They get you with the ongoing guilt of like, you're either in it or you're not. You're either our people or you're not our people. And that just creates so much shame around our eating. And it's not even with eating, it's with movement or anything. Like if you don't go to the gym today, you're like bad, and then you may as well not go for the rest of the week or the month because you screwed up, quote unquote, screwed up once. Like that makes no sense. Every moment, like every second, like clap every second. Every time you clap, that's one clap where you can make a decision for yourself. And so I was definitely in that camp. Like on the flip end of it is when I was restricting and I was experiencing anorexia, bulimia. I thought that if I binged and purged once, I may as well do it 12 times. Mm-hmm. And it was the exact same behavior as when I was anorexic. And I would say, well, if I could go one day, then I'll go 3. And on the opposite of that, when I just started binging, it was like, well, I binged once, I may as well binge for the rest of the week. Or when I was trying to follow the ketogenic diet with so many rules, I'd be like, well, I mean, I already had a sweet potato, so I may as well go to Dairy Queen and order 4 blizzards. What? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. But it's because of the good versus bad mentality. And the only way to get over that is to realize that there are no good or bad foods. And that's why I went on that I'm buying $200 worth of junk food thing. And I understand that that's a privileged thing, that not everyone can spend $200 on junk food thing and just keep it in their pantry. But I did that. And I just, every time I walked by it, I said, Leanne, you can have that food. Eat it. And a lot of people listening will be like, oh my God, if I did that, I would just keep eating it and eating it and eating it. No, you really wouldn't, because you'd start to feel like absolute garbage and you'd make better choices for yourself. But the reason you keep eating it over and over and over again, is because you've told yourself you can't have it. It's like the teenager or the kid that you say, like, Johnny, you can't have another cookie. And he's like, okay, Mom. And then you see him in the cookie jar later because you said he couldn't have it. It's the same thing. It's like my parents telling me I couldn't borrow the car as a teenager, and I used to steal the keys and take the car anyway. It's like you want what you don't have. You want what's restricted. And that's why there's that mentality, I feel like, with, well, I mean, I went off my plan for lunch, so I may as well not eat this way for the rest of the week. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, I'll start again on Monday.
No, starting again to what? For what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, every single moment you have an opportunity to adjust yourself.
Yeah. It's
like, oh, I've never even thought of this analogy. It's like getting into a car accident, maybe you just like clip somebody's car and being like, well, I mean, I may as well just back up and hit their tail end too, and just like going back and forth. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. That makes no sense.
Yeah, let's play bumper cars on the freeway.
Yeah. I mean,
that's funny. Let's see how far that gets you.
Yeah, not very far. Probably jail.
Yeah, totally. Or the hospital, or both.
True.
So, Leanne, what is next for you? I know you said that did you just put out the Keto Diet Cookbook?
Yeah, the Keto Diet Cookbook launched in April of 2019. You guys can find out more by going to ketodietbook.com. It should be in most bookstores. It's in Costco in Canada. It's in Target in the US, and Barnes & Noble and Indigo and Chapters, and basically all over the place. Amazon also. And then my newest book, Keto for Women, comes out June 18th. It's like 400 plus pages of just outlining all the little adjustments that you can make to your ketogenic diet. There's a whole chapter on a lot of the mental stuff that we go through on diets, and how to have a healthy relationship with your body and your food, like what we talked about, a little bit of what we talked about today. And I'm really excited about this one. This is kind of like my dream project, and I really enjoyed writing it. You guys can find out more by going to ketoforwomen.com. And when you pre-order, you're entered to win one of 3 VIP memberships to my 12-week video training program, Happy Keto Body, that comes with lifetime coaching calls in a group setting where we answer your questions, and an unlimited forum that's not Facebook, where you can ask myself and my colleague, who's Dr. Nina Lewis Larson, all your keto questions. So I'm really excited to offer the membership for our pre-orders. So if you just go to ketoforwomen.com before June 17th, pre-order your book, you're instantly entered to win. And that's pretty exciting.
Yay! That's awesome. I'm super excited to read that one. That will be a very, very good read, I'm sure.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun putting it together. There's tons of graphics and different ways to combine your food. It's really fun, so I'm pretty stoked about it.
Oh, awesome. And where can people find you, Miss Leanne?
Yeah, my blog is Healthful Pursuit, and if that's too challenging for you to spell, just go to ketodietpodcast.com. That's my podcast, and you'll see all my episodes. I think we're up to like episode 180 or something at this point. And yeah, you can see my face in some bookstores around places. And I'm on Instagram at Healthful Pursuit. Also, if you just search Leanne Vogel, you'll find me.
And then where is your boat launched right now? Where are you guys docked?
Well, right now we're on the hard because we're doing work. And on the hard means like they took up our boat and put it on concrete in Fort Lauderdale. So we're here just getting some boat work done. But by the time this show goes live, I betcha we're going to be crossing over to Panama. Wow. That's kind of, around that time. So, we're just living our best life, having no idea what we're doing. Very limited experience. I mean, we have experience now, but when we started, we had no idea what we were doing. So, so it's been a blast, and just really cool to understand that there's so much more to life than your body and keto and diets, and to just be able to put my body to use in some practical application, like sailing, has been such a gift. Although very challenging, it's been cool.
Well, if you ever make your way to California, let me know. I have a friend that has the same type of lifestyle. They live on a boat. Her and her husband, he was a skipper, and he would like take boats from Australia or New Zealand and Australia to the States. So
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's an epic sail.
Yeah, her pets are ducks.
That's cool.
I know.
I really like it.
It's super, super, super cute. So, hey, listen, I just want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart. I'm super excited to talk with you. I have followed you for quite a while, and it was just an honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. I really appreciate it. Thanks for such a great conversation today.
Aw, you are awesome, and you inspire so many women, and I love your story. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, that was like one of the best shows ever. It was so much fun because I have just been following this woman and being inspired by her for so long, and I was so blessed to be able to talk with her today. So if you like the show, please share it with a friend. And if you could head on over to iTunes, give us a rating and review so that more people can find these stories and be inspired by these amazing guests. All right, so thank you so much for listening. Go out and make it a super day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.